Hello there, Bo.
What's up, Ron?
How are you?
Good.
Good. This is gonna be fun.
This is our first foray into
It is. Yep.
podcast.
Yes, it is.
What is a podcast?
I have no idea. I think that's going to be part of the adventure. I don't think anybody does, and that's why there's 8 million of them that are all different.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Do we have to talk about cooking on this podcast?
I hope not. Can you cook?
Actually, I can't cook good. I can make dinner.
You can get it. Yeah, we're eating cold cereal if it's left up to me.
So your wife primarily cooks?
Yep, she cooks. She does the cooking, and then if it's not her, we're going out.
Yeah, my wife is working, and so
Yep.
I try to help out as much as I can. I don't do that much.
Yeah.
I don't empty the dishwasher. Don't get me wrong.
Right. There's plenty to do around the house. That is kind of the duty. Not all the time, but a lot of the times I'm cleaning up.
Yeah.
She'll
okay.
make it, and I'll clean up. But
Do you have that rule? Whoever cooks, the other person has to clean up?
we're really bad with the rules. Like,
Yeah.
we don't establish stuff and then stick. Well, that's wrong. We do establish a whole bunch. We just never stick to it.
I agree with that. That's how we are.
Yep. So our boys are just getting to the age where they could or should be doing some of the chores, and we have a good week where they do, and then.
Do they have to do anything or have any responsibilities with just dinner? Let's talk just about dinner. Do they have to set the table? Do they have to get the drinks or anything like that?
Yeah, we're just kind of cave people that
Freeform.
sit around the couch, and we put placemats on the ottoman and eat there hunched over watching television
or
and
YouTube or something.
And so they do have the responsibility to clean up the couch, put out the placemats, get the drinks.
So I've got two, a 10-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son.
Yep.
And basically the only thing we have is he's got the trash.
Yep.
And she has to, at the beginning, she had to clean the floor. I know that sounds very Cinderella-esque.
Yeah.
But she had to sweep.
She's got the
Under the
toothbrush. You've got her down scrubbing toilets
No,
with the.
no, she uses a broom. She can stand
That's good.
when she sweeps. Yeah, but we try to do that.
That's
The
good.
one party cooks and the other party
Yep.
cleans up. But my wife cleans up.
Yep.
I mean, I'm no good at it.
No, yeah.
So if I cook, she cleans up. That's the rule.
Yep.
And if she cooks, she cleans up because I'm no good at it.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's basically it.
Well, but that's kind of what I wanted to talk through today was just backstory.
Okay.
Your so. I mean, that's who you are now. But I mean, did that start early on for you? Was the chore thing a big deal in your family? Or
Oh, yeah. I was the trash kid.
Okay.
So I have an older brother and a younger sister.
Okay.
And I had to do the trash from the kitchen to the trash can and
Yep.
then to the
Put the cans
Street.
out to the street.
I hated it.
Yeah,
It was horrible.
that's not.
I mean, and it's funny if you think about it. You have to take the trash out once a week. And there are kids all over the world that are digging ditches and
Yep.
doing that kind of stuff, and working hard.
Right. Yeah. And that's a labor when these kids are in the rice
is the
paddy
chore.
at 4 a.m. just to survive.
Yeah,
And we're complaining over taking the trash to the
to
street.
the curb.
Yeah.
It's not like we have to lift it into the truck or
No, even the trash guy doesn't have to anymore. They have
Yeah.
a robotic arm that does the lifting.
Do you remember that? You
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
When the guys used to hang on the back of the trash can,
Yeah.
of the trash truck.
I remember that. That actually looked cool. I wondered if
Yeah.
they're sad about that now that it's gone
Well,
robotic.
I think they were unionized and making a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it smelled a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
And then there are places like where my wife's from, New Jersey, where they're grandfathered in. You can't use the robotic arm because
man.
the unions are so strong.
Oh gosh, yeah. You don't want to have Jimmy Hoffa come back and bust your chops because you're.
Everyone was looking for Jimmy Hoffa under Giant Stadium in
Yeah.
concrete. Maybe he was just putting it back on the trash truck.
Maybe he pissed off the wrong trash guy.
Yeah. My wife's from New Jersey,
Okay.
and it is 2018 when we're doing this.
Yep.
And you can't pump gas at any gas station in New Jersey.
You're kidding me.
No, it's a union thing, and they still have an attendant.
Still.
Yeah.
That's we were watching Back to the Future with our kids, and when they do the flashback to 1950, and they pull up at the gas station, then these attendants run out and start scrubbing the window and putting air in the tire and filling the tank, and my kids are like, "What are they doing?" They never even seen that, but
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So you and I met about how many years ago?
Gosh,
4 or
it's
5.
been 4 to 5 years ago.
And it was really sort of interesting. I met you when you were doing the service for the 19 Granite Mountain Hot Shots.
Yep.
And I didn't meet you. I met you on the TV.
Yeah.
And that was a huge thing, The vice president was there. The governor was there. All the local authorities were there. And that
was such a wild ride. We hadn't lived in the area very long when that tragedy hit, maybe 6 months or something. And it was, you were here. The ripple effect through the community was so great. Just 19 young guys taken way too soon, and the nature of it was just so rough. And
it was very heavy.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And I remember the way I explained it afterwards, I remember going to the bank to withdraw $20 or to deposit something.
Yep.
And you would do that interaction, right? It's a general interaction.
Right.
Fill out the form, the niceties. Hi, how are you today? I'd like to take, And both of us, the teller, and we're on the verge of tears.
Yep.
You remember you'd go grocery
Everybody
shopping.
Was affected. Yep.
You were your eyes were watering.
Right.
For weeks.
Yep. It made me wonder, the similarities between 9/11 and being in New York City. I would imagine just on a way larger scale that there's something about that with tragedy and all of that ironically seems to draw people together, and you kind of lay aside some of the junk and the differences and your irritations and just...
Well, you remember after 9/11, the whole country was, you'd come up to a stop sign.
Yeah.
And you'd make a arm motion out your front window. No, you go first.
Right.
No, you go first.
Yeah.
It was really...
Yeah, you'd sit there forever and waiting for it. Yeah, just it is interesting. But that was such a crazy time in the community, and then that event that you're talking about, there were firefighters from all over the country.
And there were 5,000 folks in the Prescott Valley Event Center.
Yeah.
And you had to lead the prayer and officiate.
It was weird because we had been doing a number of the memorials right after the accident.
For the individual families?
Yeah. And news crews and whatnot had been coming and going, and they were just trying to tell the story of these young guys, and also how the community was trying to respond and rally for these families. And I don't know how it ended up, but we had found out that they were going to do a formal community-wide memorial in the area at this big sports arena event center. And so then we got a call at church that they were looking for me to do the prayer at this service. And so I just said yes, but I didn't really know what I was getting into.
Okay.
Because there were rumors at the time that that the vice president was going to be coming and involved, but that was just rumors. So I said yes, and then it was a couple days later, then the Secret Service calls and says, we have to do a full background check on you because you're going to be up there, which is super unsettling, and then you're worrying about every single
what did I
little
do
thing in
junior
the past.
High school.
Yeah, exactly. And but we went through the process, and then the actual day of what was so kind of disorienting. So I've always been kind of fascinated by the Secret Service specifically.
Okay.
And so to show up that day and then go through kind of the whole security procedure, but this was before the whole event had started, and they put us back into. They put these little tags on us, this little pin, and it had a letter on it, and that letter, I guess, told the Secret Service where you had access.
Okay.
But it also had a chip inside of it.
So they're tracking you.
Somebody was tracking where you were. And then they said, okay, well, follow us. And so they just kind of led me back through this corridor that they had created inside the event center, kind of this maze, which, again, thinking back, they were probably creating this disorienting experience so that you really didn't have a sense of where you were in relation to the event center as a whole.
And yeah, you told me that story before, and it wasn't you walk to the back door and you walk in.
Right.
You have to. They put these what are those metal little gates?
Yep.
Those control.
Yep.
Those.
These barricades, and that was the weird part. Was just they had created this whole, cheese maze, and we were walking through it, and ended up all of a sudden in the locker room. At the time, it was used. This event center was used primarily for the minor league hockey, and so we're in this sweaty, smelling, dingy hockey locker room, and it's a couple of the fire chiefs and the governor at the time,
Jan Brewer.
Yep, and I think some assistant of hers. And we're just kind of all standing there in a huddle, and then 2 Secret Service people, and then a back door that we hadn't come in, a back door to the locker room opens up, and a handful of Secret Service people walk in with Joe and Jill Biden.
Wow.
And it is that weird, this is this really weird out-of-body experience. And it was... Yeah, it was great.
Did you have that thought in your mind when you saw him from across the room that, he's taller than he looks on TV, or he's shorter, or did you have any of that?
Yeah, there was a little bit that instant kind of.
It does look like him. It doesn't look like him.
It looked a lot like him, and completely regardless of political affiliation, I have kind of a general respect just for the office in general, and so I didn't know much about him, but he was right up greeting us so quickly that then the kind of observing appearance and whatever thoughts are going on in your head go on fast forward, and all of a sudden you're shaking hands, and he was just so genuine and so kind, and then he said, "Oh, say hi to Jill." And I can't call her Jill, and so it was just kind of a fascinating experience.
And as you're telling that story, I'm thinking you're nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's nervous, and he's just walking in the room talking to people because that's his life.
This is normal for him.
Right.
Yeah, and so then where it hit high gear is there's this greeting, and we've lost all sense of location because they've taken us through the maze. We've now lost all sense of time just because I don't remember how long I've been in here.
Okay.
And now just him entering the room, everything's disorienting. Then somebody who's running the event comes in with a little notepad and says, "Let me give you the running order. Make sure that you catch what you're doing and where you are.
Who you're following and what
so that we don't
position
screw this thing up." And then she says, "Because it's already begun. And so as soon as we're done, we're all going to walk out and begin." And so then she says, "Okay, here we go. Right now, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da." And she starts telling us what's happening right now. And then she says, "So Pastor Ron, don't miss that cue, because you go up to pray right after that's done, but don't jump the gun on it." And I hadn't heard what that was or it was, and so
you mean it glazed over? Your nerves are working,
right?
Yeah.
And I'd kind of, just in a couple seconds of tuning out and trying to catch up, I'd already missed what my cue was. But I feel badly about wanting to slow it down either. So they go on to the next person and the next person, and then they say, okay, let's go. And then they line us up single file in the way that we were going to be seated up front. And we walk out and through the zigzag, and then all of a sudden we're walking up on a stage and the whole room's full of people. And that was, okay, well, now we just got to make sure I don't screw this up.
So now you've been a pastor at a church for many years before this.
Yeah.
You were recently new, 6,
Right.
7, 8 months at
Right.
Heights Church
Yeah.
when this happened.
Yeah.
You've been on stage.
Yeah.
You've done other things on stage.
Right.
How does this compare to?
Yeah, I think the formality of it, to the size of the crowd. I'd done a handful of things that were
That size?
close, and the actual being on stage is relatively familiar, and praying obviously would be relatively, even in a public way or setting, but nothing even close to the formality or the tone of it, because we'd already been interacting with all these families, and then to look out and see thousands of firefighters and their family members, and from where I was, I could see the widows and all these people, within the first couple rows, and Senator John McCain off to my left, just down in the crowd. It was very humbling, and it choked me up an awful lot. And so, but actually, it was the night before all of this where the weight of it started to hit me, because typically we don't script stuff when we pray.
Right.
That's just talking to God. And so, but the nature of this was so formal, and I thought, well, I don't want to just wing this. And so,
so you prepared something.
Right. And so, it's a little odd to kind of prepare this prayer. It felt
Right.
weird anyway. But then I forgot my notes on my bedside.
Really?
That morning when I had left, and I remembered when we were back in the locker room and prior to the vice president coming in. And so I pulled out my phone and jotted down what I could remember of what I had already written on the notepad on my phone. And if you look closely on the
video
footage on CNN or whatever it was, you'll see me walk up with my hands in my pocket, and I just palmed my phone, and then I put my hands up on the podium. Flipped the phone over, and read the prayer. And
that's pretty amazing.
That was it.
But, that's cool.
So.
Well, I watched the ceremony from home.
Yep.
Because you couldn't get into the event. The nation watched it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I was watching it, and as a viewer, I got attracted to that portion or that portion.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't know you. I didn't know you were local.
Right. Yep.
But I was very impressed with what you did and how you started it off. But I didn't know you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, thanks.
There wasn't a connection.
I
just
feel
thought
like
that you were, some guy from Houston or Los Angeles. I had no idea.
Right. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people could have done that and done it well. But
it was right that you did it.
For me, coming to town and the way things had happened, it also wasn't a surprise what God had done just to get me here. And, for that moment, there was, dozens and dozens of our staff people that had poured themselves out more than I did, even over the course of that time. And I had this public part in it that was just different. But it was one of those experiences that I'll never ever forget. And
yeah, that's a big time experience.
Yeah. So, for you, when you look back, your whole journey in entertainment industry and primarily radio, you've been doing this for a long, long time.
Yeah, the saying, God works in mysterious ways, right?
Yep.
You're living your life, I'm living my life.
Yep.
And I'm from a radio background, so I'm a disc jockey on the radio, and I'm bouncing from city to city.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to work your way up.
Yeah.
And then I finally got to Los Angeles, which was a pinnacle.
Yeah.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
It was neat. And then it wears on you. You're not going to stay in Los Angeles.
Right.
It's hard. The traffic's hard. The cost of living is hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
So we had always been looking around the map. We'd go on vacations and say, could we live here?
Right.
For 10 years we did that.
Yeah.
And then somehow we met a friend who owned a home over here. We came and visited him. We loved the white clouds, the blue skies.
Yeah.
And we were at the point in our life where my wife and I were just starting to have babies. We were living in a 1,000-square-foot home in Burbank.
Yep.
and my wife said, I'm not raising 2 kids in a family of 4 in 1,000 square feet.
Right.
I said, all right, well, what do you want to do?
For quadruple the amount of money that it would cost
That's right.
here. Yeah. Yep.
So we were lucky. We sold our house in California, and we moved here.
Yeah.
Again, just taking your finger, moving it around a circle and pointing at a part of the map.
Yeah.
And we ended up here, and your life went here and there and here and there, and you ended up here, and then we end up meeting each other.
Yeah. Yeah. But with the radio journey, I mean, I know that your dad played a huge part in you getting up in radio, but just even in your life, like what. So talk a little bit about that with what your dad was such a pioneer.
Well, and it's hard to talk about it in 2018 and have the context.
Yeah.
Okay, so he started in the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
I was born a couple of years later.
Yeah.
And this is a time, and I don't mean to sound like an old historian or something, but this is a time where you worked your way up.
Right.
So he would do great in this city, and they would ask him to come to that city. And he always worked for the worst station, always worked for the dog because he could turn it around.
Yeah.
And he would turn it around, have success in that city, and then we'd move.
And then he moved, yeah.
Now, I have an older brother and a younger sister, and our family saying is, my brother didn't go to the same school twice.
Wow.
Until high school.
Wow.
When we, quote, settled down.
Wow.
Now, you got the calendar year and the school year, so it's not
right.
exactly, every 10 months or whatever.
Right.
So we moved a lot. And so, but it was great. I mean, he had billboards up in the city. He was on the radio. I mean, it was great having your dad own the city.
That's the coolest.
Being, quote, unquote, famous.
Right.
And so then I grow up and, I get old enough to start working.
Yeah.
And he says, son, if you want to follow in my footsteps, that's fine.
Yeah.
But get into the sales side. Make money. Don't get into the on-air side and be a monkey. He said that. And so I got on the on-air side and became a monkey.
Yeah.
And you work your way up. You do the midnight show, and then you go to a bigger market, and now you're only the weekend guy and not the full-time guy, and you work your way up.
Yeah. So what city was your first?
I started in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
I'll tell you a little bit. So I started in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I started on an AM station.
Okay.
FM's more popular.
Right.
And I started working the midnight show, midnight to 6.
Nice.
And I'll tell you, I was on KZSS. And the SS stood for Star Station. And it was a format where you'd be playing, I guess it was oldies.
Yep.
It was Beatles. It was Mamas and Papas.
Yep.
It was, the Carpenters.
Yeah.
But the format was you'd play 2 or 3 songs from each artist.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole format all day long. So it was either 2 from Neil Diamond, followed by 3 from the Mamas and Papas, followed by 3 from the Beatles, followed by 2. So it was either 2 or 3. So it was
That's great.
And so it was a star set.
Right.
A little set of songs.
Yeah.
And I was doing the midnight show, and I did this. The new Star 6:10 a.m. And that was Kel King, Scared to Death. And I did that for about 9 months and got fired.
Oh, God.
And it forces you to move to the next city.
Yeah.
So not a lot of people understand the inside workings of what other people do, right?
Right.
They go, oh, you're a cook at a hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a pastor at a church. They don't understand the inside
right.
stuff.
And everybody thinks they can do it.
Right,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what was happening was it was cheaper for companies to fire your employees and maybe simulcast. You've heard that word.
Yeah.
So simulcast means you have an FM and an AM.
Okay.
And so it's easier just to fire all your AM talent,
right?
Get rid of that payroll, and then just stream the FM on the AM.
To AM. That makes sense.
So if you've got a rock station, you're hearing it on the FM and on the AM,
right?
Because nobody cared about AM and stuff, right. And they fired us, let us go because of that. Mm-hmm. And I went into the production room, which was down the hall. It was a little, and you can, if you're making commercials or doing production, you turn your mic on. There's a light outside in the hall, and people can't come in.
Right.
So I've been working for 9 months, my first job ever.
Yep.
20-something years old, and they say, "Hey, you're fired." Now it wasn't one of these things where they took armed guards and threw you out in the parking lot. They said, "Go get your stuff and take your time."
Yeah.
So I went into the production room and I turned that mic button on, which made the light in the hall so no one would come in, and I cried.
Oh.
And I said, "I thought you were supposed to." I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to get a job and work for 30 years.
Right. Exactly.
But I didn't know. I was naive. Man. And then you work your way up, and so I went to San Diego.
Yep.
And did weekends. That was my next job.
Yep.
And there was a night opening, full time. Boy, if you could get full time paycheck, that was big time.
Yeah.
And they held the carrot over us.
Yeah.
And there was 3 or 4 part timers looking for it. Yeah. And they never gave us the job. So I said, well, I got to go find a job. And I'm in San Diego. And I get a job for an American rock station. Eddie
awesome.
Money.
Oh, yeah.
Fleetwood Mac.
Yep.
Rock and roll. Rock.
Yep.
And it's in Tijuana.
Awesome.
There were about 3 at the time, maybe 4
American
stations that came from Tijuana. And I had to drive into Tijuana. Now, in the old days, this tower, the signal is coming from Mexico.
Yeah.
And you had to go down there and sit in that station, sit in that control room. And then they petitioned the FCC, can we microwave I don't know, not like in your oven, but can we microwave the signal from the tower in Mexico to our studio in America?
And then it could go out from there?
Well, yeah. And then you could sit in an American studio.
Yeah.
But that was great. I was a young kid. I was driving across the border every night at 6 p.m. to do the 7 to midnight show.
That's perfect.
And I was in a cinder block building under the tower.
Wow.
Now, tower, cell phone towers, ham radio towers.
Yeah.
This was the kind of tower that looked like the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, wow.
So big, orange and white, so airplanes don't go into it.
Yep.
And we are in a building underneath all 4 legs. That's how wide the legs were, the base of this tower.
Have you been checked for cancer?
No, everybody said you're not going to have kids. You're not gonna, it was horrible.
Oh, man.
But it's worked out. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so then you just bounce around. You send your resume out, and you answer ads, and hopefully they like your demo tape.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did.
So talking about the simulcast AM, FM, and then the equivalent of whatever, microwaving over from Mexico into the States and beyond. Your dad was kind of an early forerunner in, and I don't know the language, but with like kind of the syndication where they would pipe out.
Oh, that's right. Well, early, what came to my mind when you said early forerunner?
Yeah.
Not my dad, but he worked for a man called Gordon McClendon.
Okay.
And Gordon McClendon and his contemporaries would go to coffee shops in the early to mid-'50s.
Yeah.
And they recognized that the waitresses would take their tips and put the quarter in the jukebox and play a song.
Huh.
And they're still drinking their coffee. The song ends, 5 minutes, 10 minutes goes by, and a waitress goes in and puts a quarter in the jukebox and hits the same song.
Wow.
Because that was their favorite song.
Right.
And it was at that moment that they discovered Top 40.
Wow.
And Top 40 was you took the top 40 songs and you rotated them and you played them.
Yeah.
And now contemporary music stations will play a Taylor Swift song, and that's not contemporary, but a Beyonce song every 50 to 70 minutes.
Yeah.
And some people will go, oh, here's that song again. Right. But that's top 40.
Right.
You want to hear it again and again.
Yeah.
It's your favorite song.
Yeah.
And so he worked for guys who, quote unquote, invented top 40.
Man, it's one of those many things like we totally take for granted because it's been there my whole life. Rick Dees and all of that stuff growing up. But then, somebody had to come up with that.
So now we have satellite music, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they literally, I'm not an astronaut or a scientist, but they literally take a rocket with a satellite and they put it up into orbit.
Yep.
And somehow that plays music to everybody in the country. And you have one studio in Los Angeles, maybe Dallas, wherever your satellite company is.
Yeah.
And you sit in Los Angeles and you're doing a show, and your show is in Vegas, in Fort Lauderdale, in North Dakota at the same time. That's satellite radio. We know that. And then Sirius and XM was an extension of that.
Yeah.
But before all of that, and this is hard to understand, but before all that, my dad and his partner, they were known as Charlie and Harrigan, two made-up names, and they
because Jack Woods
my dad's Jack Woods,
yeah.
And so, but it was back in the day when you had a crazy name, or whatever, and so, and it was given to you, So back in the day, in the 70s, he had a #1 morning show in San Diego, and then they had a studio. Down the street, their personal studio. And they would go record a morning show. After they got done with their morning show, they would record another morning show on reel-to-reel tape.
Okay, yeah.
And they would, those big, they're pizza pies, right? And you would do a morning show on a reel-to-reel tape, 4 hours.
Wow.
And you would have 4 reel-to-reel tapes. And then they would leave, and their office assistant would make copies of those.
Wow.
40 copies of each hour.
Yeah.
And then they would put them on a UPS truck, and they would send them out.
Ship them out. Oh.
And they were on reel-to-reel the next morning.
Wow.
As a morning show.
Wow.
Now, we understand that, right? Podcasts and remote broadcasting, and you can broadcast through your iPhone and satellites. Right. But back then, it didn't exist.
Right. Yeah.
There wasn't a satellite in the sky for radio. And so they were on about 40, maybe 50 radio shows across the country. They were #1 in Las Vegas, and they were on reel-to-reel tape.
Wow.
They were #1.
Wow.
Beating people who would drive to work.
Right.
And
they actually were there live. And
And they were in Tucson, and they were in Lubbock, Texas, and Anchorage, Alaska.
Oh, man.
And they would do this stuff, and they were hugely successful.
Yeah.
But they were doing that generic stuff.
Yeah.
And they were doing it for about, 8, 9, 10 years. And John Lennon got shot. Remember Monday Night Football? And they announced that John Lennon got shot.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was huge news in America.
Right.
And the next morning, everyone was talking about what they heard Howard Cosell the night before and who is the shooter and what's going to happen. And the whole country was talking about it.
Yeah.
And then when you tuned into my dad, they were going, 2 guys walk into a bar.
Right.
And a blah, blah, blah. And they were taped. They were canned.
Wow.
And so that was pretty much the demise of it.
Yep.
But he ended up in the Radio Hall of Fame in Chicago.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
That is so great. And you told me there were some secrets to doing the where they would send out these reel-to-reel. You couldn't give references necessarily to time or location.
Right. Well, they would pre-record all that stuff.
And now, you can kind of tell now when you're listening if people are local or not.
No, for example, in our city, Northern Arizona, where we're originating this podcast, there are radio stations that are on the satellite.
Yeah.
And I know all the guys because I've worked with them.
Right.
And most of them are coming out of Dallas.
Yeah.
But I get to hear my friends.
Yeah.
But they can't tell you the time.
Yeah.
Because they're in Dallas and they have affiliates in Los Angeles and in Virginia and in Minnesota and different time zones. So you can't say the time.
Right.
I will tell you a story. When I was doing the satellite,
yeah,
I was brand new hire, and it was exciting. It was an ego stroke because it was big time. It was, you were on 100 affiliates, maybe more, depending on which one you were on. And so they start out and they say, okay, now you got to be careful. You can't make, too many references or whatever. So I said, I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
You can say 10 minutes after the hour.
Right.
But you don't know what time zone you're in, so you can't say the hour.
Right.
That kind of stuff. You can't do the weather.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So
Yeah.
you're talking about, hey, what did the president do, or whatever, national news.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Or you're having a caller and you're doing a joke.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's generic.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm really getting it, and I'm really doing well,
Yeah.
and they like what I do, and I'm being as specific as I can, but I'm also keeping it generic.
Right.
And so off the air, so I'm working, this particular shift was like, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Yep. Yep.
And so I know that at midnight, the country it's after midnight.
Right.
So I can make a reference like that or
Yeah.
something. So anyways, so off the air, while the song's going, I get a call on the request line. Now, I don't know where it's coming from.
Right. Right.
And so I answer and I say, you can't say the call letters because you don't know what station they're calling.
Right.
So you say, hi, studio.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, can you play a song? And you can say, yes, I'll try my best and hang
Right,
up. But I
right.
wanted to talk and try to learn from people.
Yeah.
So I said, what's your name? She said, so-and-so. I said, you're working the third shift, huh? I can say third shift because it's after midnight everywhere in the country.
Right. Right.
You're working the third shift, huh?
Yeah.
She said, yeah. I said, where do you work? She thinks she's talking to a local disc jockey.
Right.
She said, I work at the Texaco station.
Awesome.
I said, oh, that's fantastic.
Yep.
I said, which Texaco station? She said, the only Texaco station. It's true.
That's it.
Because I didn't know that. I figured there'd be at
gosh.
least two more
Yeah,
Texacos in
exactly.
this.
Yep.
But that was it. So I sort of blew it on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she didn't mind.
That's so good. That's so good.
And so when we moved to Arizona, I was working in Los Angeles, worked my way up.
Right.
Well, let me back up just a minute. I'll tell you I know this is killing people, right?
No.
So
it's good.
I'm in Dallas, which is a top 10 market. You know,
right.
Pat on the back, huge ego stroke. I mean, I'm in the big time.
Yeah.
And I hate my boss.
Yeah.
I hate him. And he hates me. And it was the worst situation.
Yeah.
It was
Those
just
are
horrible.
never good. Yeah, those are never
But you
good.
got to just grin and bear it, right?
Right, right.
And I did a little networking, and I'm 30 years old. Don't wake up before noon. working the night show.
Yep.
Life's great.
Yep.
And I do a little networking, and a guy calls me and says, you want to come do mornings in Norfolk, Virginia? I hated my job. And I said, I'll do afternoons.
Yep.
Because I don't know how to wake up at 5 in the morning.
Right.
And he said, no, I'm the boss. I'm in a nice way. I'm explaining it to you. He said, no, I'm the boss, and he has to work. The boss has to work the afternoon show because they have all the problems from 9 in the morning to whatever. So they can't do a morning show and be putting out fires.
Yeah.
He says, no, I'm the boss, so I'm doing the afternoon show. I said, oh, man, all right. And I hated where I was.
Yeah.
Never woken up before 10 in my life.
Right, right.
I said, okay, I'll take the job.
Yeah.
At that time, I couldn't point on a map where Norfolk, Virginia was.
Yep.
That's how much I hated my job.
Oh, man.
I said, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I took it, and it was impossible to wake up.
Oh,
but we
man.
did really well. We worked hard, and we did really well.
That's fun.
And I met my wife.
Yep. Oh,
And it's
that's
those
so
things
great.
that everyone listening, everyone in the world has. If I
Yes.
didn't take that step,
Right.
it wouldn't have happened.
You never know.
Right.
At the moment, it's super hard to make sense of why this or why that. But then all
That's
of a
right.
sudden, some door opens up or somebody comes into your life or whatever.
I don't want to come across sexist or
no.
I do not want to come across insensitive.
Yeah.
But it had been my experience that when you're 30 years old and you got a girlfriend,
Yeah.
maybe this doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm going to set a lot of people by saying this, but when you're dating and something happened, something negatively impacts your life, your girlfriend leaves you.
Yeah.
Because you're 30, you're 28.
Right.
That's just how it happens.
Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't upset anybody that I said that.
No,
and so
that seems to happen pretty often.
I think it's and vice versa.
Right, oh,
guys
yeah, for sure.
will bail on things too.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm working. I got a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
And I'm 10 months into my 3-year deal. And at the 10-month mark, I meet a girl,
Wow.
my girlfriend.
Wow.
And A month later, I'm dating her for 30 days.
Yep.
And a month later, and we got to the point where she had a dog and I had a dog.
Yep.
And she was a school teacher.
Yep.
And so she would leave her dog. She would let him go to the bathroom in the morning, put
Yep.
him in the house
Yep.
until 3 in the afternoon.
Yep.
So we got, in our relationship, we got to the point where I said, if you want, I work 6 to 10. I get home at 10,
Right,
11
right.
o'clock.
Yep.
I'll go get him and
Yep.
our dogs will play till you
Yep.
come home at 3
Yep.
if you're comfortable with that. She
Yep.
said, yeah. So I'm dating my girlfriend for 30 days. I got her dog.
Yep.
And I get off the air and I get fired.
Ugh.
They sold the radio stations
Oh,
and
man.
fired 19 employees.
Oh, gosh.
And I just started dating her. I'm a month into this relationship. There goes that relationship.
Man.
So I go get the dog. We're in the park for 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Here comes 3:30.
Yeah.
My girlfriend comes home.
Yeah.
And I said, I got a little bad news. And she said, what? She's getting out of her car. I met her in the parking lot of the apartments.
Right.
And she said, what's that? And I said, well, I got fired today.
Oh.
And she said, are you okay?
Oh.
I said, yeah. I've been
Wow.
fired 100 times.
Right.
I said, yes.
Yeah.
She said, what are we doing for dinner tonight?
Oh, man.
And
What a
man, bells
moment. Oh, yeah.
went off in my head.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
it didn't faze her.
Yep. Yep.
And now I've been married for 18 years, and she probably wishes it would have fazed her after what we've been through.
That's so good.
But anyways, and then I worked my way to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And then we're working in Los Angeles again. It's pretty impressive.
Right.
You're in the #1 radio market.
Right.
And I worked here for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then we had kids.
Yeah.
And then we moved here.
Well, and that's the irony because I mean, I'm from the LA area, and
Yeah.
so and listen to the station that you were on.
Right.
So without knowing it's you, I'm sure I'm listening to you.
And same thing with you at the memorial.
Yeah.
I'm watching you on CNN,
Yeah.
and I don't know you.
Right.
But this person that's standing on the stage
Yeah.
in my living room
Yeah.
on the TV is impressing me.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's just a wild thing. And then out of all places too, Prescott isn't this urban metropolis. And so just the things that got us here, because my grandfather was born and raised in LA, but then he moved to Prescott in the 1940s to live with his uncle, went to high school here, and then immediately went back to California.
Now, let me interrupt. People who are not from Prescott,
Right.
the area,
Yep.
would say, why would you move to a podunk town?
Right. Exactly.
Why would you come from Phoenix? Why would you come from Los Angeles?
Yeah,
What is
exactly.
here for you?
Right. Yeah.
People who are here
Yeah.
say, keep that attitude. We love where we're at.
Right.
And but it's the same thing. Why
Yeah.
would your dad,
Yeah.
whether it's the 30s or 40s
Right.
or 2008 or
Yeah,
2018, why
exactly.
would you move here?
Yeah.
And thank goodness we did.
Yeah, I
But
know.
go
it.
ahead. So
no,
your-
it's
so
just
your
wild.
dad is-
Yeah, grandfather. So
Your
he,
grandfather,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So he. I don't really know the
he
full
played sports at
backstory.
Prescott High School.
He did. He was on the Prescott High School Football Hall of Fame.
He's on that
And,
wall in the gym.
He is. And so when I was 17, he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I remember us driving out here as a family.
So you had to come from Southern California to see
Yep.
your grandfather's induction.
Yeah. And
Now, what did you think? You're 17. Did you say, "Oh, this is going to be a boring drive"?
Yeah,
Why am I going to it?
Yeah, when you picture Arizona, and I think most people just picture what Phoenix is
That's
like.
exactly
it's
right.
hot, it's flat, it's not that attractive, it's just desert. But northern Arizona is this, paradise of
Right.
pine tree forests, and this is mile-high elevation, and some areas with lakes and rock formation. It's really beautiful. And so I thought, wow, this is not what I expected. And so it was cool. But all I really remember was just the halftime ceremony and him getting inducted in and feeling like this is a really small place, but really special community. And then years and years later, and I get this call from this church out here that was looking for a little help, and would I come just guest speak for a weekend?
Wow.
And that was it. I hung up, and we had just lost my grandfather. Hung up and called my grandmother and said, "Isn't Prescott where Pop was in
Wow.
high school?" And she said, "Yeah." And called my mom, and I said, I got this request to come guest speak at this church. Let's all go out. It was 4th of July weekend 6 years ago. let's all go out and just kind of see Pop's old stomping grounds, enjoy the area, enjoy the weekend, 4th of July in a cool place. I'll speak, and then we'll get out of here. But when we got here, my wife and I and kids just kind of fell in love with it, and one thing led to another.
Coming from Southern California, and I don't want to be a Southern California basher, but
yeah,
that's what happened to us. We came on vacation, you came to speak, and then you look at the clouds, and where's the graffiti on the freeway overpass?
Right.
I'm not used to this.
Yeah, where's the freeway? It was just so nice to, even the safety, because same reason for you guys, the kids.
Yes.
Like, we could have lived there. I'm from, I don't hate it, but I didn't want to raise my kids there, and this has been a cool spot. So I'm so thankful just how it ended up all crisscrossing, and here we are. So,
and then I was working at a radio station in town.
Yeah, that I was listening to.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were coming in to do an interview down the hall at our sister station.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to put 2 and 2 together that you were the guy that I was impressed with.
Yeah.
And so I went to my sister employee, or whatever you call it, my employee who worked down the hall at the other station.
Right.
And I said, do you have Ron Merrill coming in?
Yeah.
She said, yeah, we're talking about something. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was,
something.
But yeah.
She was helping you at a church event.
Yeah.
And I said, do you think you could introduce me to him?
Right.
And I was looking for a church. I wasn't involved in a church.
Yeah.
And I was so intimidated, I'll tell you that. No. And I was nervous. And I shouldn't have been.
No, but that's common. It's such it can be a weird culture, and you don't know what you're getting into, and
And so I asked her to introduce me when you two were done. Could you come down to my little cubicle? And
And I remember standing there just chatting about church, but all I remember walking away thinking was, oh, what a cool guy. I can't wait just to hang out.
Yeah.
And so.
Same here. And I remember, and I don't know if, this, I'm intimidated. I'm not intimidated. I'm nervous to say this, but I remember my opening line to you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is good to say. I said, I'm looking for a church, but I got to tell you, and did you know when I said this? I said, I'm a C&E Christian.
Oh, yeah.
And
Christmas
maybe
and Easter.
C&E. Some people go, what's a C&E? And I was a little ashamed that I didn't go to church regularly.
It doesn't bother me.
And you said it's okay.
Yeah.
Come whenever you want.
It's fine.
And we mustered up the courage, and we went over there, and thank goodness we did. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, not to land the plane or force it into full circle or hit something that maybe is too close to the heart. But I think what hit me was, and this is for another podcast, another episode, but just our dads were so influential on us, and I lost mine too soon, and then it wasn't very long after we had first met there where you lost your dad, but then had kind of a crazy experience just missing him where some radio spot popped up on the internet.
Oh, should we tell that story now?
I don't know, or maybe save it for the next time. I mean,
let's
that's
save
worth
it for the
listening
next one.
in, because that's when you dial into the next episode or another episode, you got to catch this, because it was so amazing to me. And talking about AM and FM and simulcasting and
the way
satellite
God works.
radio, and then
how
God's working. It was just it's amazing. So I think that's kind of the cool part in all of this, is just what God's up to, and so now even just to get to be friends and be able to chat through stuff and laugh, and I think that's what we're hoping this podcast will just be, kind of a time to laugh and share some stories and kind of find out.
This was our introductory podcast.
Right.
We're sort of flying by the seat of our pants.
Yep.
And, I like that you brought that story up that we will share on our next podcast.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds
and
really
hopefully,
good.
I'll add, maybe we'll be funny on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Aren't podcasts supposed to be funny?
I think some of them. We'll do some of both. So
all right,
Ron.
Ron.
That sounds good. Thanks so much, Bo.
Take care and have a good day, and
all right,
thanks for listening to the podcast.
Sounds good. We'll catch you on the next episode.